It's kind of funny when you think about it, isn't it?
What's that?
Well, how much time we spend figuring out our phones or, our cars,
Uh-huh.
but maybe not so much time understanding this amazing thing between our ears, our own mind.
Right. Bill Lucas points that out in his book, Power Up Your Mind, because most people know less about their minds than their car engines.
Exactly. Which is pretty surprising. And that's really what we're diving into today, isn't it?
Precisely. This deep dive is for you if you're looking to, well, absorb knowledge faster, more thoroughly, without getting totally swamped.
Yeah, like a roadmap to your own mind.
Kind of. We're unpacking Lucas's book to help you figure out how your mind works and, yeah, how to power it up for learning better.
And the book itself, it draws on a lot of different areas.
Oh, definitely. It pulls from neuroscience,
Hmm?
the brain science bit, but also psychology, how we think and feel, motivation theory.
So not just theory.
No, not at all. He even brings in insights from business leaders, so it's got that practical, real-world angle, too. Useful stuff for you.
Okay, great. So our mission here, what is it exactly?
Simple, really. We want to pull out the key ideas, the practical techniques from the book,
Right.
to give you strategies you can actually use to become, well, a more competent learner, sure, but also a lifelong learner, someone who keeps growing.
Got it. Okay, so let's start unpacking. Lucas introduces this term, learnacy. What's that about?
Learnacy, yeah, it's a core idea. Basically, it's learning how you learn, understanding your own learning process.
Which sounds obvious, but maybe isn't.
Exactly. Lucas argues that, school teaches you reading, writing, arithmetic, the what?
The three R's.
Right. But often, nobody explicitly teaches you how your brain best takes in information. Learnacy is like getting the user manual for your own learning computer.
Like finally figuring out all the settings on this super powerful tool you've got.
Precisely.
And to understand that tool, Lucas gives a bit of history on how we've thought about intelligence. Egyptians, phrenology. Does that old stuff help us now?
It does, actually. It shows you how far we've come, from thinking the heart was the center of thought.
Wow.
Yeah, to things like phrenology, trying to map intelligence onto skull bumps. Kind of wild.
Definitely sounds wild.
But seeing that evolution helps you appreciate the modern idea of multiple intelligences. It tells you you're not just smart or not smart. You have different kinds of intelligence.
Okay, so we're not just one thing. Which brings us to McLean's three brains model. Sounds a bit technical.
It can sound that way, but it's actually a pretty helpful concept for you. Think of it like layers built up over time.
Layers.
Yeah. First, the reptilian brain, super old, handles basic survival, instincts, breathing, that kind of thing. Your immediate gut reactions.
Fight or flight.
Exactly. Then came the mammalian, or limbic system. That's more about emotions, social stuff.
Okay.
And finally, the learning brain, the neocortex, the newest part. That's where your higher thinking, reasoning language happens, the bit you use for deliberate learning.
So how does knowing about these three help you learn better? What's the practical takeaway?
The big one for you is understanding stress. When that reptilian brain senses danger, real or perceived, like work pressure, it kind of hijacks things.
Hijacks.
Yeah, it pulls energy and resources away from the neocortex, the learning part, towards survival mode. That's why it's hard to think straight or learn when you're really stressed.
Ah, okay, so stress literally shuts down your learning capacity to some extent.
It really can. And the limbic system, emotions, that plays a huge role too. Your emotional state is key for learning readiness. We'll get more into that.
Got it. And then there's the other common idea, the divided brain, left brain, right brain.
Right. The two hemispheres. You probably heard people say, I'm left brain or right brain.
Totally. Logical versus creative.
That's the general stereotype, yeah. Left side often linked to logic, sequence, language, analysis. Right side more to creativity, intuition, seeing the big picture, patterns, spatial stuff.
But it's not actually that simple, is it?
Not really, no. That's a crucial point for you. It's an oversimplification. Both sides work together constantly on almost everything. The takeaway isn't to label yourself, but to know both logical and creative thinking are valuable, and importantly, you can develop both.
Okay, so you can strengthen both sides. Good to know. All right, we've got a basic map of the hardware. How does this machine actually learn things? What are the key principles?
Fundamentally, learning is about making connections. Your brain cells, neurons, they talk to each other through these little extensions, axons, and dendrites.
Okay.
When you learn something new, these connections literally form or strengthen. Lucas uses this great analogy. Imagine explorers cutting a path through a jungle.
Ah, like the dendrites or the explorers.
Exactly. And the more you use that knowledge or skill, the wider and clearer that path becomes in your brain. It gets easier to access.
So practice really does make perfect, or at least makes the path easier to travel.
Precisely. It strengthens those neural connections. And building on that, your brain is always trying to make connections. It wants to link new stuff to what you already know.
It's looking for meaning.
Yes. Which also means having the full picture is important for you. If you only get bits of information, your brain tries to fill the gaps.
And sometimes gets it wrong.
Can do, yeah.
Yeah.
Leading to misunderstandings.
Okay, makes sense. What else? How else does the brain like to learn?
Patterns. Your brain absolutely loves patterns. It's how it organizes everything. Think of it as its filing system.
So finding patterns helps you file information away better.
Exactly. You encounter something new, your brain immediately tries to see how it fits with patterns you already recognize. It makes things efficient.
Like mental shortcuts.
Kind of, yeah. And another big one is imitation. We learn so much by watching and copying others.
Like sitting next to Nellie, as
Yeah.
Lucas puts it.
That's the one. Observing someone skilled, whether it's a mentor, a colleague, a role model, even how kids learn from parents. It's a really powerful, often subconscious way you learn. Coaching builds on this directly.
So watching and doing is key.
Very key. And finally, circling back a bit, stress. We said it hijacks the learning brain.
Right. Diverts resources.
What Lucas emphasizes that excessive stress is really detrimental to performance. Your brain needs a balance. Enough challenge to be stimulating, but not so much threat that the survival brain takes over completely.
The sweet spot. Challenged but safe.
That's the ideal zone for your learning brain to function optimally.
Okay, that's super helpful. So we need to fuel this brain properly too, right?
Yeah.
Lucas has this equation. Brain plus personality, mind. What's that telling us?
It's telling you that your mind isn't just the physical gray matter. It's your brain interacting with your unique personality, your feelings, your experiences, your values. So feeding your mind means looking after both the biology and the psychology.
Right. And the brain food part, it's not about miracle supplements, is it?
Not at all. It's about good, basic habits for you. Lucas highlights 3 key things: hydration, balance, and little and often.
Hydration first, just drinking water.
Yeah. Your brain is mostly water. Its electrical signaling needs good hydration. Even being slightly dehydrated can really mess with your focus and thinking. There was a study at Leeds University showing just that.
Wow. Okay, note to self. Drink more water. What about balance?
A balanced diet. Your brain needs a steady supply of various nutrients to work well, just like your body. He cautions against too much processed food, too, links it potentially to hyperactivity issues in some studies.
Okay. And little and often.
Eating smaller amounts more regularly helps keep your blood sugar stable, avoids those big energy dips after a large meal, or the slump from skipping meals. Skipping breakfast, for instance, can really disadvantage your learning for the whole morning.
Right, avoid the sugar crash.
Yeah.
Consistent energy. Makes sense. Are there other ways to feed the mind?
Definitely. He talks about laughter.
Laughter, how does that help learning?
Well, it physically relaxes you, releases endorphins, puts you in a more positive, receptive state. Apparently, kids laugh way more than adults, something we lose touch with.
Interesting. What else? Music.
Music, yeah. It engages both brain hemispheres, processing melody, rhythm, patterns. It can lower stress, help relaxation, change your mood. Think how certain music affects your heart rate. Of course, it's individual what works for you.
True. I definitely have my focus music. And the last one.
Sleep. Hugely important, often underestimated.
Why is sleep so critical for learning?
During sleep, your brain isn't just off. It's busy consolidating memories, processing what you learned during the day, strengthening those connections we talked about.
So that's why sleep on it actually works for problems sometimes.
Absolutely. Your brain is literally working on it, organizing information, even making new connections while you sleep. Some people, like Jane Angotti I mentioned in the book, even pose questions to themselves before sleep, hoping their brain will work on them. Reviewing material before sleep can also boost recall for you.
Fascinating. So food, water, laughter, music, sleep, all fuel for learning. Okay, let's switch gears. Getting ready to learn. What influences our readiness?
A big one is your emotional state. You really need emotional readiness. It's hard to learn if you're feeling super stressed, anxious, worried, or if your self-esteem is low.
Right, like trying to build on shaky ground.
Exactly. Lucas suggests you kind of check in with yourself. How stressed am I? Am I worried? How's my self-belief? Am I curious? Am I just too tired? If those things are out of whack, learning is going to be tough.
So self-awareness of your emotional state is step one. What else? You mentioned curiosity.
Curiosity is huge. Lucas calls it a natural love of learning. It drives so much informal learning, the stuff you learn just because you're interested.
But maybe we lose some of that as we get older.
Often, yeah, life, routine, pressure can dampen it. He suggests ways for you to rekindle it, like consciously listing things you're interested in, admiring others' passions, maybe cutting back on passive entertainment to make space for active curiosity.
Actively cultivating wonder again, I like that. And stress and low self-esteem, we touched on those, but they directly hit readiness too.
Massively. Stress, as we said, impairs thinking. Low self-esteem creates this feeling of, I can't do this, which is obviously a huge barrier to even trying to learn. Lucas mentions things like cognitive behavioral therapy or NLP as ways to challenge those negative thoughts.
Building that mental resilience. He also talks about learned optimism. What is that?
That comes from Martin Seligman's work. It's about how you explain bad events to yourself. An optimist might see a setback as temporary, specific, and not entirely their fault. A pessimist sees it as permanent, pervasive, and all their fault.
Ah, so it's about your interpretation.
Yes, and the good news is you can learn to be more optimistic in your interpretations. He breaks it down into permanence, pervasiveness, personalization, how you frame setbacks in those terms. It builds resilience for you.
That's a really useful frame. What about physical well-being?
Absolutely linked. More and more recognized now. Being physically fit, healthy, it just gives you the energy and focus your brain needs. Sainsbury's Fit for Life program is mentioned as an example of workplaces supporting this.
Makes total sense. Mind and body connected. He even mentions spiritual intelligence. How does that fit in?
It's about your capacity to find meaning and purpose, having a sense of your core values. It influences your motivation. You're more likely to learn things that align with what you find meaningful or ethically important. It shapes your why.
Okay, understanding your why. So let's talk motivation drivers. What actually makes you want to learn?
Well, Lucas references work identifying fundamental human drives things like curiosity, avoiding distress, gaining status, order, social contact. He prompts you to think about which of these drives you're learning.
Interesting. And he offers a formula.
Yeah, a useful way for you to think about it. Readiness plus value plus probability plus impact motivation.
Break that down for us.
Okay, readiness. Are you emotionally and mentally prepared? Value. Do you see the point, the benefit of learning this? Probability. Do you believe you can actually learn it, that success is possible? Impact. Do you see how learning this will make a positive difference for you?
If all those are high, your motivation should be high.
That's the idea. If one is missing, motivation dips.
Clear. And the ideal state for learning. What does that feel like?
It's that sweet spot again. Curious, but relaxed. Alert, but not anxious. Engaged. He uses a model showing you want high challenge but low threat. That keeps you engaged. Too much threat. You're anxious. Too little challenge, you're bored. Low challenge and high threat. Demotivated, controlled.
Finding that engaged quadrant. Makes sense. Does he give tips for boosting motivation if it's low?
Yep. 10 practical things you can do, like breaking big tasks into small chunks, finding different ways to get the information, not just reading, celebrating small wins, using humor, asking for help,
Yeah.
things like that.
Simple, practical stuff. Nice. What about where you learn and who you learn with?
Huge factors. Your environment matters. Is it conducive to focus? Quiet enough? Comfortable? And learning is often social. We learn well in groups, communities, think historically, apprenticeships, guilds.
But our environments have changed, haven't they? Home life, work life.
Massively. Technology, longer working hours. Finding dedicated time and space for learning can be harder now. Lots of pressures competing for your attention at home.
True. Which leads to barriers. What are the common things that stop people learning?
Lack of time is a big one people cite. Or feeling learning opportunities aren't accessible. Fear is another fear of failure, looking stupid, and sometimes feeling too old.
How does Lucas suggest you tackle those?
For time, think laterally. Can you learn on your commute? Listen to something. For access, explore all options online too. For fear, recognize it's normal. Reframe mistakes as data. For age, remember brain plasticity. Your brain can keep learning and changing throughout life. Learning keeps you young, in a way.
Great counters. Okay, so we're prepped, motivated, aware of barriers. How do we actually become competent learners? Back to Learn to See.
Exactly. Now we're into the how-to. Learnathy isn't just the old three R's, reading, writing, arithmetic. Guy Claxton suggests new three R's for you: resilience, resourcefulness, and reflectiveness.
Resilience, resourcefulness, reflectiveness. Okay, what about the learning cycle?
Right, the four stages, good for you to know where you are. Unconscious incompetence, you don't know what you don't know.
Blissful ignorance.
Sort of. Then conscious incompetence, you realize you can't do something. This is often where you seek learning.
Okay,
Then conscious competence, you can do it, but it takes concentration, effort. This is where lots of skill development happens.
right. Needs focus.
And finally, unconscious competence, you can do it automatically without thinking, like driving a car eventually.
Got it. A useful map of the journey. He also talks about different types of learning.
Yeah, like formal courses, informal experience,
Yeah.
accredited, non-accredited, permanent changes versus temporary knowledge. He encourages you to think about the mix in your own life. Are you relying too much on one type?
Good point. Broaden the sources. Now, a whole chapter on understanding yourself as a learner sounds crucial. What's in there for you?
This is really about knowing your preferences. How do you best take information in? Primarily visually seeing diagrams, reading, auditorily listening to lectures, discussions, or kinesthetically doing moving, hands-on experience.
VAK, visual, auditory, kinesthetic.
That's it. Lucas gives questions to help you figure out your leaning. It's important because, say, workplaces often favor visual and auditory. Kinesthetic learners might feel disadvantaged if they don't adapt or find ways to learn by doing.
Knowing your input preference helps you choose the right methods. What about learning styles? That different?
It's related, but more about how you process information once you've got it. Honey and Mumfield's model is mentioned. Activists learn by doing, jump in. Reflectors observe, think it through. Theorists, like models, concepts, and pragmatists, want practical application. How does this work?
So your VAK preference is input. Your style is processing.
Broadly, yeah. And knowing your style helps you understand why you might get impatient in long meetings if you're an activist, or need time to think if you're a reflector. You can use this knowledge about yourself to choose learning activities that suit you.
Makes sense. Knowing yourself is key. Then resourcefulness. What does that mean for a learner?
It means having a toolkit, a smorgasbord, as Lucas calls it, of learning techniques you can draw on, not just relying on one method.
A toolkit. What's in it?
A key skill is getting the big picture first. Don't dive into weeds before you see the whole landscape. He gives tips on how to ask for that context.
Start broad, then narrow down. Good advice. What else?
Tuning in your mind, activating what you already know about a topic before you start, like a mental warm-up. He calls it brain drizzle.
Brain drizzle. I like that.
Also, breaking learning down into chunks, making big topics feel less overwhelming by tackling smaller pieces, can be linear steps or more like following a recipe with different ingredients.
Manageable steps.
Yeah.
Crucial.
And revisiting imitation, learning by watching others, but also the social skills involved, like being willing to share what you learn. He uses an analogy of robins versus blue tits. Learning to open milk bottles, the sharers spread the skill faster.
Interesting. So learning from others is vital. He gives tips on how to do that effectively.
Yeah, 10 ways.
Yeah.
Like consciously spending time with people you admire, observing specific skills, using videos, reading biographies, asking for feedback. Lots of practical ways for you to learn by imitation.
Okay. What about e-learning? Gets a mention.
It does. He acknowledges its place, but also shares data on why it sometimes fails, can be boring, technical issues, poor design, doesn't suit everyone's style. He prompts you to reflect on your own online learning experiences, what works for you.
Good caution. Not all e-learning is created equal. And finally, under resourcefulness, extending your range.
That's about pushing your boundaries, trying learning methods that aren't your usual preference, stepping outside your comfort zone, maybe trying an action learning set if you usually learn solo. It builds flexibility.
Keep growing your toolkit. Okay, moving into memory, resilience, creativity. First, memory. Fixing versus recalling.
Right. Fixing is getting the memory encoded in the first place. Recalling is retrieving it later. You need both for learning to stick. Stress chemicals, by the way, can interfere with both processes.
Good to know. What are the key principles of how memory works?
Lucas highlights 4 for you. Primacy and recency, you remember first and last things best. Patterns and connections, easier to recall, linked info. Review repetition, strengthens recall. Emotional tagging, things with emotional resonance stick better.
Practical implications there for studying, meetings, presentations.
Absolutely. Structure things with key points at start and end, link ideas, review regularly, make it engaging.
He mentions mind mapping. Tony Buzan.
Yes, as a great visual technique for you, it maps how your brain thinks, radiating ideas from a central point, uses color, images, helps organize thoughts and aids recall because it's visual and interconnected.
Taps into that pattern-loving brain. Other techniques.
Things like stream of consciousness note-taking, just getting ideas down quickly. Using acronyms to remember lists, he gives SPIRIT as an example. Using place associating info with locations in your mind.
Memory palaces.
Kind of, yeah. And again, the importance of regular review making deposits in your memory bank. And sleep for consolidation, reinforcing that point.
Got it. Consistent effort and rest are key for memory. Now, resilience. Sticking with it when it's tough.
Exactly. It's about persistence when learning gets difficult or frustrating, rather than switching to easier displacement activities.
Like checking email instead of tackling that hard chapter.
Precisely. He notes that resilience isn't always taught or rewarded, but it's vital.
How can you build learning resilience?
Techniques include persisting even when unsure, pondering why you feel stuck, deliberately choosing harder options sometimes, using trial and error, reflecting on your motives for learning. He encourages you to assess yourself on these.
Be tough, be reflective. He also says, learn adventurously.
Yeah. Try new things totally outside your norm. Different music, different route to work, visit different kinds of businesses. It builds adaptability and confidence for you. Makes learning less intimidating.
Shake things up. What about getting unstuck? Specific tips.
Ask for help. Break the problem down smaller. Take a break, exercise, change your physical location. Just generate questions about the problem, even if you can't answer them yet.
Practical ways to shift perspective. And handling confusion. He says it could be a good sign.
Yes, Tom Peters, quote, "Confusion is the hallmark of all clear thinking." Charles Handy, quote, "Significant learning occurs when continuity runs out. Confusion often means you're grappling with something complex, pushing boundaries. It's part of deep learning, not a sign you should stop."
Reframe confusion as progress. How to deal with it.
Talk it through with someone. Look for different perspectives, analogies. Read around the topic. Don't just sit there frustrated. Engage with the confusion.
Okay. Now, creativity. Harnessing it. Linked to aha moments.
Yeah, those moments of insight. He argues creativity is vital now for individuals, for businesses. Asks you to think about when you felt creative, what characteristics that involves.
It's not just for artists anymore.
Not at all. Collaboration helps two diverse groups spark more ideas. Hillary Cropper example given. Environment matters.
Right. And Howard Gardner's multiple intelligences come up here.
Yes, expanding beyond just logical linguistic, he lists Gardner's types: linguistic, mathematical, visual, physical, musical, emotional, self-awareness, social, understanding others, environmental, spiritual, practical. 10 types.
10. Wow. Encourages you to see your own unique blend.
Exactly, and think about how to create environments that nurture different intelligences. Spaces for movement, music, social interaction, nature, hands-on stuff.
Tailor the environment.
Yeah.
He also lists sins that kill creativity.
7 of them. Things like predictability, rigid routine, fear of risk, being too internally focused, lack of fun, always wearing suits, metaphorically, things that stifle new thinking. He asks you to reflect if you see these around you or in yourself.
Things to avoid. A core creative technique is making connections.
Absolutely. Lots of new ideas are just combining existing things in new ways. Wheel plus steel plus steam is railway. He gives techniques like random word association, forcing connections between unrelated objects, using critical friends to challenge thinking.
Deliberate ways to spark connections. Lateral thinking gets a mention. De Bono.
Yes, Edward de Bono's lateral thinking ways to think sideways, break patterns, and his 6 thinking hats, a structured way for you or a group to look at an issue from different perspectives: facts, feelings, caution, benefits, creativity, process.
Useful frameworks. What about problem finding?
That's about reframing, not just solving the problem as presented, but asking if it's the right problem. Changing the frame can unlock totally different solutions. Like the fuel price protest example was the problem fuel price, or tax, or government policy.
Questioning the question. And double loop learning.
Briefly mentioned, it's about questioning the underlying assumptions and beliefs behind your actions, not just tweaking the actions themselves. Deeper reflection. IKEA's advertising is a case study challenging industry norms.
Challenge assumptions. Fun is important too.
Yes, Richard Branson example. Playfulness, brainstorming outrageous ideas. It frees up thinking.
Don't be too serious.
Yeah.
And finally, learned possibility.
Going beyond just optimism, it's about fostering a belief that new things are possible for you. Practical tips. Set one achievable goal, use relaxation, seek multiple perspectives, note surprises, visualize success, use music senses, building that can-do belief.
Cultivating possibility. Okay, final big section. Living and learning, putting it all into practice. Why is learning more important than ever now?
Lucas argues it's due to the pace of change, complexity, new ways of working, needing adaptability. People are key assets. Quote, several business leaders emphasizing this. Learning isn't optional for thriving anymore.
Constant change needs constant learning. Darwin quote about adaptability.
Right. Survival goes to the most adaptable. Learning and reflecting on experience is how we adapt. Your brain is a survival mechanism geared towards this, but we need to be conscious of it.
Which can be hard. He mentions change blindness.
Yeah, the experiment where students didn't notice the person they were talking to was swapped out. It shows we can miss big changes if we're not paying attention. We need to be mindful observers of our world and ourselves to adapt effectively.
Stay awake to change. So, putting learning into practice requires reflectiveness.
Crucial. Lucas calls it the key to getting value from learning. Shakespeare, quote, there is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. We often forget training insights quickly without reflection.
The leaky bath problem. Pouring learning in, but it drains out without the plug of reflection.
Exactly. Effective reflection isn't just navel-gazing. It's looking back, what happened, taking stock, what does it mean now, and thinking forward, what will I do differently?
Why does reflection work? Scientifically.
It helps the brain make patterns, reinforces memory traces, helps process the emotions around mistakes, making them learning opportunities. It solidifies the learning.
How to do it. Different people have different methods.
Yes, he shares examples, some journal, some dictate notes, some discuss with others. The key for you is finding a method that works and making it a habit. It takes effort, but pays off hugely.
Find your style. He lists core intelligence skills for self-assessment.
Yes, helps you understand your learning strengths and weaknesses better, guides where you might focus development.
And barriers to reflection. Time, fear of mistakes.
Common ones. Admitting mistakes feels risky, resistant to change, feels like wasted time, no quiet space, just mental effort. He encourages you to brainstorm ways around your barriers.
Proactively tackle the barriers. There's a technique called feed forward.
Mike Leibling's idea, instead of feedback, looking back, it focuses on suggestions for the future. Example, someone wants to use more jokes in talks. Group gives specific ideas for next time. More positive, action-focused reflection.
Interesting twist.
Hmm?
Okay, after reflectiveness comes responsiveness.
Your capacity to actually change and adapt based on reflection. Linked to resilience and creativity. It's the action part.
Making the change happen. He mentions models of response to change. Kubler-Ross.
Yes, the stages like denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance, and a more nuanced one adding frustration, experiment, decision, integration. Understanding these stages helps you navigate personal change more effectively. It normalizes the emotional journey.
Knowing the stages helps you manage them. He offers principles for leading change, applicable personally too.
Definitely. Things like building on the past, giving full information, engaging people, or yourself, having a clear vision, providing support, minimizing uncertainty, moving quickly where possible. You can apply these to managing changes in your own learning or life.
Taking charge of the change process. Example of ICL's Conversations for Change.
Yeah, a large-scale example of engaging employees in understanding a future vision using visual tools and guides. Shows the power of involving people in the why and how of change.
Okay, so reflect, then respond, adapt. What about balancing your life? Seems crucial for sustained learning.
Increasingly recognized, Lucas cites surveys showing work-life balance is highly valued. You can't learn effectively long-term if you're burned out or neglecting other important parts of your life. Employers of choice support this.
It's holistic. He includes a quiz.
Yeah, a life balance quiz for you to self-assess areas like work hours, relationships, health, personal development, fun. Helps you see where things might be out of kilter.
A quick check-in. The 5 balls analogy.
Brian Dyson's idea. Life is juggling 5 balls. Work, family, health, friends, spirit. Work is rubber. If you drop it, it bounces back. The others are glass. Drop them, they can shatter or be permanently damaged.
Powerful reminder of priorities. Controlling stress is part of balance.
Absolutely. Stress undermines performance, learning, everything. Causes regression, like experienced speakers becoming stilted under pressure. He explains the biology fight or flight cortisol release.
How to manage it. Practical tips.
A technique for worries. List them, Prioritize, identify actions you can take for the top ones, let go of the rest for now. Also, general tips for work stress. Gain control where possible. Seek learning ops, set goals, take breaks, celebrate success, have fun, get support, clear communication, flexibility, healthy environment.
Lots of actionable ideas there, and a different kind of life planning.
Moves beyond just career planning. Links private life happiness directly to work success and learning capacity. Suggest couples, for example, take time to review life, dream together, agree goals, making space for the whole person.
Connecting personal fulfillment to overall effectiveness. Great. Lastly, making time for learning. Needs planning.
Yes. Can't just be an afterthought. Needs conscious planning, making it a normal part of life, not an extra.
Role of a learning practitioner.
Someone who can support your learning, a mentor, coach, guide, helps you identify needs, find resources, stay motivated. Could be formal or informal support. Have you had someone like that?
Good question for listeners. And the Personal Learning Action Plan, PLAP.
Inspired by Sir Christopher Ball. A structured way for you to plan your learning. Steps involve taking stock. What learning do you enjoy? Strengths. Style. Identifying gaps needs, planning the what, why, how, when, where, and how you'll know you've succeeded.
A personal roadmap for learning. Excellent. And the final part of the book, useful information.
Yeah, part 4 is like a quick reference. An AZ of key concepts, troubleshooting tips for common learning problems, and resources for further exploration, plus an index.
Handy extras. Okay, wow. That was a comprehensive deep dive into power up your mind. We've covered so much ground for you.
We really have. The core message for you is pretty clear, though, isn't it? Understand your own mind, how it works, what helps it, what hinders it, and you really can learn faster, work smarter, maybe even live more fully.
Absolutely. This deep dive aimed to give you those practical insights and tools from Bill Lucas's work.
Hopefully it sparks some ideas.
So, thinking about all those gears in your mind's engine, what's just one gear you feel inspired to maybe engage a bit more consciously this week?
Could be anything we discussed. Maybe focusing on sleep or trying that feed-forward idea, or even just starting to sketch out a personal learning plan.
Yeah, we definitely encourage you to pick one or two things that resonated and actively try them out. See what happens.
And of course, if specific topics really caught your interest, maybe multiple intelligences or mind mapping or managing stress, you might want to check out the book itself, Power Up Your Mind by Bill Lucas. There's plenty more detail in there for you.
It's definitely worth exploring further if you want to continue powering up your own amazing mind.